What are the Kings' issues, and is not having a top 50 player in the NHL one of them? That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love for you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we are on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network, also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the last 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. What are the Kings' three big issues for this season? That was the subject of a recent article in the Hockey News from one of their top writers, Adam Proto, who was doing three key issues for each NHL team across the league. And he recently wrote an article about our LA Kings. So what were his three key issues? And we're going to get into that a little bit, but I would start off by saying, not really a big fan of the key issues type of thing. Now, maybe I'm being a little bit too picky, but to me, when you're talking about a team's issues, you're talking about their problems and how those problems need to be corrected. And I don't think that's necessarily what he was actually going for here. Maybe three key questions to be answered for the Kings would be a better way of putting it. Maybe he wanted to be a little bit different. Maybe that three key questions thing's something that everybody kind of does. I don't know. But anyway, just maybe being picky again, but that was just my thoughts on that. But let's get away from that. What were his three key issues for the LA Kings? Well, number one, can young star center Quinton Byfield build on his breakout year? The number two issue, will new Kings goalie Darcy Kemper improve on Cam Talbot's individual numbers last year? And the number three issue, as the Kings added toughness to the roster this summer, has GM Rob Blake sacrificed too much skill? All right. So let's get into this. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the first issue. Can young star center Quinton Byfield build on his breakout year? Now, I'm not going to read you his responses word for word because that would be wrong. If you're interested, and you should be, go check out his article at the Hockey News, Adam Proto, and read it for yourself. I will say, though, that to answer his issue, he did feel optimistic that Quinton Byfield would get better this season. And I agree. With Byfield moving to his natural position of center, we think centering the second line, I see no reason why he can't be at least as good as he was last season when he posted career highs in goals with 20, career highs in assists with 35, and career high in points with 55. Now, I will admit I was a little concerned if he was ready for the added responsibility of moving to the center position and playing it at the NHL level. But after hearing how excited and confident he is to move back to this position, which he's played his whole life and he feels more comfortable at, I was sold on the move now rather than maybe next season. So I think his goals should be around the same. I think moving over to the center position and likely teaming up with Kevin Fiala on the second line, that Q could get around 45 assists this season and probably be in contention to be one of the Kings' top three scorers this coming season. Now, while I agree with Adam Proto's opinion about Byfield continuing to get better, I don't really agree this is one of the three issues for the LA Kings this season. Q is going to get better, and he's going to be a key player for the Kings' future. But even if he doesn't improve on last season's stats, I still think the Kings can be a playoff team. Now, he needs to avoid any kind of regression. And if he has a breakout season and turns into an absolute superstar, that would be huge for the Kings. But we'll get more into that in a moment because of the Kings' possible lack of superstars. But I think he is an emerging star. But I don't think that we should expect him to be a superstar next season, that he's going to have this huge breakout season, that the big step that he took last season is going to be another big step forward. Now, I hope that happens. We all think eventually it will happen, but I don't know if it's going to happen this coming season. I think we should expect and continue to hope that he does show progress, continues to get better, maybe not the big leap that he had a season ago, but just keep improving. He's still 22 years old. He's still just starting to figure it out. Showed us some glimpses last year. I think he is ascending to be an NHL star at some point. Not sure, though, if it's going to be next year. And I think that's okay. The number 2 issue, will new Kings goalie Darcy Kemper improve on Cam Talbot's individual numbers last year? Well, Adam Proto believed that Kemper would be better in LA than he was in Washington, but expressed doubt that his numbers would be better than Cam Talbot's. And look, no doubt goaltending always is going to be an important factor for every team. But my question would be, why does Darcy Kemper have to improve on Cam Talbot's numbers from last season? That's kind of implying that maybe Talbot's numbers weren't that good. Maybe that's just me reading into it, but they were good, at least in the regular season. In his one season with the Kings, Cam Talbot won 27 games and 52 starts, posted a 2.50 goals against average, and had a .913 save percentage. The question or issue isn't, can Darcy Kemper improve on Cam Talbot's numbers? The question is, can he be anywhere close to them? If he's close to them, I'll be thrilled. Forget about improving on them. 30 starts last season for the Capitals. Kemper had 13 wins, a 3.31 goals against average, and an .890 save percentage, and lost his starting job. That said, if Kemper doesn't improve, if he's the same subpar goalie he was last season, then the Kings, I think, will just turn it over to David Rittich. Now, Kemper, I believe, will get every opportunity to prove he can be better with a better defensive team in front of him. And I think he will be better. Will he be as good as Talbot? I don't know. But I think Kemper will be a bit rejuvenated in a new situation, returning to a place he's comfortable with where he did have success, albeit several seasons ago. And I think that will be just enough of what he needs to get back on track. But again, if he doesn't get the job done, I'm actually completely fine with the team turning it over to David Rittich. Now, small sample size, but 22 starts for Big Save Dave. He had 13 wins, a 2.15 goals against average, and a .921 save percentage. If he can do that over half a season or a quarter of a season or most of a season, if Kemper doesn't work out, I think he can, and I think he will be fine. Now, I'm not concerned about the Kings goaltending, mostly because my expectations aren't really, really high. I think this is more of the same that we've seen from the Kings over the past couple of seasons. They can win with this group of goalies, but not because of them. The Kings, if they were relying on their goaltending to be the difference maker for the season, then that is an issue, and that's something to be concerned about. But I don't think that's what it is. I think the Kings are just looking for their goalies to play competent games, to be solid, not spectacular, and to keep them in games. And they hope that that will be the difference. They're not looking for whoever the goalie is to win games for them. They're looking for them to be a part of wins for the LA Kings. Issue number 3. As the Kings added toughness to the roster this summer, has GM Rob Blake sacrificed too much skill? I kind of get where Adam Proto was going with this, and I do agree that I think maybe the point he was trying to make, does this shift in philosophy and identity, is that going to be the difference maker for the Kings if they get in the playoffs, and could that be the thing that gets them out of the first round? What I don't get about the question, though, or the issue, is the sacrificing of too much skill part of it. Now, the Kings did trade away Pierre Dubois, but you could argue that was an addition by subtraction. Now, on paper, he's thought of as a skilled player, but we didn't really see a lot of high-end skill from him. They didn't bring back the Kings' Victor Arvidsson, and he is a skilled player, but only played 18 games last season due to injury. He's skilled but unreliable. And Matt Roy, certainly a solid defenseman, but you wouldn't call him a highly skilled player. He's very good at his position, but a very skilled player, I don't know about that. So, look, the Kings brought in defenseman Brant Clark, and he's the highest skilled defensive prospect they've had since Drew Doughty. Now, the other players the Kings brought in, Warren Fogle, Tanner Jeannot, Joel Edmondson, they are not skilled players. But if you're weighing the amount of skill lost compared to the amount of grit and physicality added, I don't see this as being much of an issue. So the Kings' issues to me are, how is Jim Hiller going to be a difference maker? How is he going to do what the Kings said they wanted to do? And that was be a more offensively potent team without sacrificing their identity. I think another issue for the Kings is, how much will their younger players contribute this season? Brant Clark, Alex Turcotte, Akil Thomas, and I'll even throw in Alex Laferriere and Jordan Spence. The younger core of this team, how much can they be a factor collectively for the Kings? I think could be an issue. And I think an issue for the Kings, the changes that they made to get grittier because they wanted to have success in the playoffs, that's fine. But is that style for the regular season going to be good enough to get them in the playoffs? Because it doesn't matter if you've built a team for playoff hockey if you don't get into the playoffs. So we'll see how much going to that kind of a style, how much of there is an adjustment, how long does it take them to get into that kind of style and excel at it, and will it be enough to get them in the playoffs? Because like I said, it's great to build a team for playoff hockey, but if you don't get in the playoffs, then obviously that point is moot. So I do think that Adam Proto isn't necessarily missing the mark too much here. I think overall his issues about the LA Kings, I think he's shooting around the target, but I'm not sure if he's actually hitting the target here. So how much of an issue is the Kings' lack of top-end NHL talent? That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Those of us that live here in the LA area, we are so lucky that we have an opportunity to see so many live events, sports for sure. I'll be at every Chargers home game this NFL season. I'll be heading to Pittsburgh in a few weeks to see the Steelers take on my wife's Chargers. But it's not just about sports. We here in Los Angeles have obviously theater events and concerts to go to. I just got invited to go to the Hollywood Bowl this weekend to check out a live performance of the Marvel movies music, which is very nerdy, but I'm that kind of nerd. Anyway, no matter what you enjoy, concerts, theaters, comedy, music, you need Gametime to get you the tickets you need. And Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. Are you a Dodgers fan? Gametime has a 50% off Labor Day offer you need to check out. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDONNHL, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right, the Hockey News also recently released their 2024-25 yearbook. It's got all kinds of goodies in there. One of their yearly features in the yearbook is their list of the top 50 NHL players for the upcoming season, the THN Top 50. Now, the rankings were determined by a panel of judges that included past and present NHL general managers, coaches, and players, and some of the most eminent members of the hockey media, according to Wikipedia anyway. Thanks to friend of the show, Austin Stanovich, for bringing this to my attention. But the LA Kings have 0 players on the list. Not one. Not one player in the top 50 NHL players play for the LA Kings. Now, is that a shock? I would say no, but I would also say you can make a legitimate argument that there are a couple of Kings players that belong at the bottom end of that top 50. For example, Rope Hentz is a forward for the Dallas Stars. He was the 50th player on the list. He had 30 goals and 35 assists for 65 points last season. Good season. But is that better than the 28 goals and 47 assists for 75 points that Adrian Kempe had? Or the 29 goals and 44 assists for 73 points that Kevin Fiala had? I would say no, but perhaps I'm a bit biased. The point is, the Kings are lacking elite talent. And while it is true that teams win the Stanley Cup, you have to have at least a couple of high-end elite players. We're talking top 20 players in the NHL, and I don't think there's much debate. The Kings do not have that right now. The defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers had 4 players listed in the Hockey News' top 50. The Edmonton Oilers, who they barely edged out for the Cup, had 4 players on the list, including a couple in the top 5. I think you know who they are. Of the 16 teams that made the playoffs last season, 14 of them had at least one player on this top 50 list. The 2 that didn't, the LA Kings and the Washington Capitals, who were both out really quickly in the first round of the playoffs. So that also means that the 16 teams that didn't make it in the playoffs, 14 of them did not have a player listed in the Hockey News' top 50. Now, that's not a coincidence and not surprising. And also, if the Kings want to be a serious Stanley Cup contender, they are going to need to have, yes, a solid team, but also a few elite players on that list at some point in the near future. Now, we talked about Quinton Byfield. I think he's on the trajectory to get there at some point. I think he can and will be a top 50 player in a couple of years. We hope at some point Brandt Clark could be a player to get there as well. Who else? Not sure as far as the group of players we've seen so far. Maybe a guy like Liam Greentree. Maybe, we don't know. Way too early to say. Could goalie Eric Portillo blossom into a high-end goalie? I mean, probably not, but let's remember no one thought Jonathan Cook was going to be a Hall of Famer either. So we'll see. But the current group of Kings, it's not like they're without talent. We talked about Kempe. We talked about Fiala. Byfield's on the rise. Kopitar and Doughty are still really, really great veteran players. This is not a talentless LA Kings team, but I think you also would have to admit they don't have that elite high-end talent that every Stanley Cup contender needs. So hopefully the Kings can continue to build a solid core, get this identity going, have guys like Byfield and Clark ascend to being pillars and elite players. And then you do have to make additions at some point through trades or free agency down the road to get at least a few players in this Hockey News top 50 NHL players. It is something the Kings are lacking right now, and it's something they will have to address either within or outside the organization at some point here in the near future. Now, if you can't get enough list talk, I saw the NHL Network announced its list of top 20 current NHL defensemen, and the Kings' Drew Doughty was on the list. He checked in at number 17, one spot behind Edmonton's Matthias Ekholm, and one spot above Vegas's Noah Hannafin. No surprise, Colorado's Cale Makar was listed as the number 1 defenseman in the NHL. As for Doughty, he'll be entering his 17th NHL season this coming year, all with the LA Kings. The alternate captain led all Kings defensemen last season in goals with 15, assists with 35, and points with 50. The soon-to-be 35-year-old played all 82 games for the LA Kings on their top pairing, as well as the power play and the penalty kill. Now, he may not be worth the $11 million he's making per season, but Drew Doughty's still a very, very key piece of the LA Kings and still playing at a high level and worthy of being listed on the NHL Network's top 20 current best defensemen. We've got some news on the Kings' national TV schedule and more. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now, through September the 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. With a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every single regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market NFL game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. And of course, FanDuel is always there for you to bet on your favorite sports, Major League Baseball, golf, soccer, NASCAR, and of course, the upcoming NFL season. Join FanDuel, browse the latest betting odds of your favorite sports and teams on the Sportsbook app, and get in on the action. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. We got some Kings news and notes to pass along. The 2024 NHL Rookie Faceoff is 2 weeks away from this coming Friday here in Los Angeles. Now, more specifically, the Toyota Sports Performance Center in El Segundo, where the Kings practice. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the event, it's the annual tournament featuring the top prospects from several NHL clubs, mostly in the western part of the United States. This year, 7 teams are participating. The LA Kings are obviously the host team. You've got the Anaheim Ducks, Colorado Avalanche, San Jose Sharks, Seattle Kraken, Utah Hockey Club, and the Vegas Golden Knights. The 4-day event will feature 3 games on Friday, September the 13th, 2 games on Saturday, September 14th, and 2 games on Sunday, September 25th, before it coincides with the 6 teams that are taking place on the ice. You've got 3 Kings games in this event. Friday, September 13th against Vegas, that's 7 p.m. Saturday the 14th against Utah, also 7 p.m. And then Monday at the 16th, that's at 3:30 p.m. against the Anaheim Ducks. Now, all these LA Kings games will be streamed for fans to watch on lakings.com. That might be important because this could be a tough ticket to get. If you do want to attend in person, friend of the show, Russell Morgan from Hockey Royalty, posted on social media today. Tickets are $9 per game. There's also a $399 all-game pass. However, there are only 200 tickets available for each game. Now, the good news is it's a very small venue, and you're going to have a great seat no matter where you are. The bad news is it's a very small venue, and I'm sure a lot more than 200 people would like to attend these games, especially the Kings games. So I don't know what the details are at this point as to how you're going to get the tickets, whether it's something you can order in advance or you have to purchase them at the event itself. But as soon as we find out some information, definitely we'll announce it on the show, and definitely we'll post it on social media as well if you follow us at Locked On LA Kings. Now, the NHL also announced its national TV schedule for the league, and the LA Kings will be featured on national television 13 times in the United States this coming season. Of Pacific Division teams, only Vegas has more games, 1 more with 14. Now, the nationally televised games will be broadcast on the ESPN networks, ESPN Plus, ESPN, ABC, Hulu, and also on TNT, Max, and True TV. The Kings are on national TV 3 times in October, the 22nd at Las Vegas, the 29th at San Jose, and the 30th at home against the Golden Knights. National TV once in November, the 13th at Colorado. LA is on national TV twice in December, the 4th against Dallas and the 19th at Philadelphia. In January, the Kings are on national TV once, the 22nd against Florida. Also once in February, that's the 26th against Vancouver. Kings are on national TV twice in March, the 27th at Colorado and the 30th against San Jose. And finally, LA has 3 nationally televised games in April, the 10th against the Ducks, the 14th at Edmonton, and the 15th at Seattle. The other remaining 69 games for the LA Kings will be on local television. And speaking of that, we told you on Monday that the Kings are expected to once again have their games broadcast for at least one more season locally on Bally's Sports West, unless the Kings decide to do what the Anaheim Ducks are doing. The Ducks said so long to Bally Sports, whose parent company is filed for bankruptcy. The Ducks are moving their local broadcast from the regional sports network to a combination of direct-to-consumer streaming and local broadcasts. The Ducks are going to have 65 games next season on over-the-air TV here in Los Angeles. They're also partnering on a multi-year deal to stream all their games free of charge regionally on the Victory Plus streaming service. Now, the LA Kings need to be looking into this. Hopefully, they already are, because Bally Sports is dying, and frankly, this is the wave of the future. Now, I'm still a dinosaur. I still have satellite TV, but streaming is where things are going quickly. And the Kings are on Bally Sports for one more season, and that's the reason why, frankly, I haven't made the switch to just streaming, because I want to watch the Kings, and I want to watch them on DirecTV. So I have to assume the Kings are going to be at least closely watching how this goes with the Ducks, and likely will follow their lead next season. A little bit disappointing, frankly, that the Kings seem to be a bit more followers instead of leaders in something like this when it comes to local TV broadcasts. But again, this is where it's heading. I don't know. I think Bally's is hoping for a Hail Mary that some company is going to buy them and keep them in business. We'll see about that. But again, Ducks are moving to free streaming And that would be a great service to the LA Kings to have free streaming here in Los Angeles for their fans, so we don't have to pay to watch Kings games. That would be tremendous. And hopefully that will happen here in the near future. So that will do it for today's show. Today, a Thursday show instead of on Wednesday. We tried to get an interview on Wednesday. Didn't work out, so we had to shift to Thursday. But we're still doing 3 days a week for a couple more weeks, and then it'll be back to Monday through Friday. But speaking of Friday, of course, coming up tomorrow, we'll have our weekly fan feedback show. Anything you want to comment on regarding the LA Kings? Do you want to chime in on the continued mystery surrounding Arthur Kaliev and why he hasn't been traded and why teams seem to not be interested in him? What do you think about what we talked about today with the Kings' 3 issues? Do you also agree the Kings don't have any top 50 players in the NHL, or certainly not enough high-end talent to be serious Stanley Cup contenders? If you want to chime in on any of that, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. And as always, you can leave your comments on the YouTube episodes as well. We'd love for you to stay interactive with the show by following us on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We will talk to you on Friday. And as always, go Kings, go.